Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Stunning Steve Barber, and I just want to kind of cover some news and maybe a little bit of opinion, kind of an editorial to go in place with this. I do apologize for not putting out anything, being kind of sporadic here lately, but putting anything out. Just been a lot of stuff going on. I mean, as usual. I mean, I know this sounds kind of lame considering that seems to always be the excuse or always be the reason, but you know what? Life happens sometimes. And yes, I know if you also follow my other podcast, the Cubicle Chat podcast, you know I've actually been putting those out on the regular. Um, but for this one, it seems like I need to make sure I got all the information down. And plus, I'll be honest with you, it's really not the same when I don't have a co-host, especially my good friend, one of my best friends, actually. I mean, I'll tell you that right now. He's kind of a ride or die friend with me, and that's, of course, is Dwaylon Davis. He's been one of my closest friends since high school. And we do have a great chemistry together when we're working on this, and it really is not the same without him here, and so it does make it harder for me to do this. And uh, sometimes I'm even thinking, okay, we're doing this. I'm trying to think, the questions that oh, I can't do it because Dwayne unfortunately is not here. But I will have to say, give an update on Dwaylen. Uh, Baby and mom are both doing fine because Dwaylen just recently became a father again, and so he's having to focus on family, which obviously we always said family comes first, and we always stand by that. And I do want to pass on, if Dwaylen's listening to this or watching this on YouTube, a lot of people have been sending their congratulations, including some wrestlers who I just spoke to this past Saturday at the Northern Wrestling Federation, like the show that I actually went to in Mount Orb. And that's Mount Orb, Ohio, for those who may not have listened to this previously. But today, I just want to kind of cover some recent events. It is kind of WWE heavy. I mean, I will admit there are a couple of things that aren't necessarily WWE, but because I've been watching a lot more WWE lately than anything else, and that's not a knock on the other organizations. It's just what I've been trying to find the time to watch, and even this sometimes I don't always get to watch. I mean, I have to catch the highlights, but you know what? It happens. But before I continue on, I want to go ahead and give all the contact listening for the show. If you'd like to email the show, it's armchairbookingpodcast at gmail.com. On the social medias, you can actually find this show on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. On Twitter now, it's at Booking Armchair. You can find it on TikTok. Not that I do much with it, but it's there. And obviously, you already know it's on YouTube if that's how you are watching the show. And for those of you who are watching on audio, if you were to go and give the show a 5-star rating and a review on a platform that allows you to give reviews, I will actually read the review on the air. If you happen to use a platform that allows ratings but not reviews, send a screenshot of the rating along with a review that you can just type up in an email to armchairbookingpodcast at gmail.com. I'll read that on the air. And if you don't want me to reveal your name, just let me know. I have no issues at all maintaining people's privacy. I get it, because there have been times I definitely wanted my privacy as well. And before I start with today's news, or I want to say this week's news, hopefully I'll get a regular schedule, because that is kind of been my goal. But like I said, just things keep kind of popping up, and it happens. And so now it's like maintaining that. Maybe it might be a Wednesday show. We'll have to see. But I want to give a shout out to Duke from Duke Loves Wrestling for actually coming on the show. It was about a week and a half ago now. And he came on the show. We had a great interview. Very eye-opening interview, I will say that, about some recent events that have been going on in the world of wrestling. And Duke's a good guy. Just really just got in contact with him, I want to say about a month ago, maybe. And since then, we've actually, you know, kind of, maintained a pretty good line of communication, because we're always, we message each other, text each other, and just make sure we're both doing okay, and especially with all the wrestling news that has actually kind of affected both of us. And speaking of Duke, he actually had an interview with kind of a one of the old school wrestlers named Kenny Jugan, who was known as Zoltan. That was probably his most famous name in the ring. You really need to go check out that interview. Duke Loves Wrestling. Just look for the Kenny Jugan interview, and just remember when you hear it, to say Kenny Jugan. Yeah, just go listen to that. Watch it. Actually, I mean, he's on all the audio platforms as well, but he puts the audio on YouTube. And just a great dude all around. I mean, I've really become a fan of his wrestling podcast, and he has another podcast as well. Um, that I've also became a subscriber to. As far as some other shout outs, so I want to give a shout out to BC Hunter and Wrestling with the Truth. BC, it was kind of funny. He said he was going to kind of not really put a hiatus on the audio, but then things happened and he started putting more audio out. It's kind of funny, but he has such a great quality program. I'm glad to hear his program. But he also has his Wrestling with the 80s channel on YouTube. He's just another good dude. Go check out his show if you can. Or actually, you know what? If you can't, figure out a way to check it out. Make sure turn that can't into a can. And the Finish Your Wrestling podcast. My buddies, they're out of Buffalo, New York. We've actually established a kind of a bond there. It's over wrestling, but I mean, we also message about other things too. Just some great dudes. Love their show. Very analytical, and it's always fun when you have the analytical minds, but who actually look at things from different angles, because now you can actually, hopefully you can get together and establish like an entire picture of things, because you're seeing it from one way, they're seeing it from another. You put it together, you'll have a complete story. I want to say hello to the guys from the Dad World Order. They're actually based right around Cincinnati as well. And I met those guys, it's been about a year and a half or so now. Almost 2 years ago, I met those guys, and another great dudes. Check them out, Dad World Order. They actually do a lot of traveling when they go to their shows. Another shout out to the guy who's became a friend of mine. I see him at a lot of the NWF shows, and I've actually seen him at other shows that aren't NWF. This dude is all about wrestling, but he also he has his own wrestling podcast, but he does other podcasts as well. Great dude named Kenny Cummings. Give a shout out to Kenny. Great dude. Go check out his shows. I want to say hi again to my friend Justin, who's part of the TNC Sports Talk. He also, by the way, he has a 6-month-old at home, so he's also been staying pretty busy with that. Another great dude who's been helping me out quite a bit. He's giving me topic ideas. And he's also been a guest on my Cubicle Chat podcast, which is my non-wrestling podcast. And speaking of people, giving me ideas, I want to give a shout out to the first co-host for this show, Kyle, because Kyle is always giving me good ideas. He's always giving me good feedback. Maybe it may not even be feedback that is nice necessarily, but he's being honest, and that's what I appreciate. And another shout out to Dwaylen, just because, one of my best friends in the world. And so I've always got to give him a good shout out. Now, as far as news, and some of this is kind of recently, Rhea Ripley was former women's champion in WWE, and she is now out because of a legitimate injury. She was actually attacked backstage by Liv Morgan. Now, I don't know if Rhea was injured prior or if she actually was injured. I mean, inadvertently, because I know Liv Morgan would not do this intentionally. She would not intentionally hurt Rhea Ripley, especially the women's champion. And my Lord, you do something like that intentionally, it's going to cause some ripple effect. It's not going to look good on you if you're hurting people. It means you're not being careful. You're not looking out for the other person's safety. And then you do it to the champion. So now they have to jump through hoops. Well, we got to get a new champion. But Rhea's out. Don't know the return date. I haven't seen that yet. It's with her arm. Something happened with her right arm. It is legitimately injured. And so this past Monday, 2 days ago, they had a battle royal on Monday Night Raw to determine a new champion. And Becky Lynch won the championship. And I I wouldn't have done it, but then again, that's why the show is called Armchair Booking. I wouldn't have made that decision to put it on Becky, and it's nothing against Becky necessarily. It's just that she has held the title before. She doesn't need to hold it now. Becky is so over with the fans. I mean, the fans love her regardless if she's champion or not. I know there's a wrestling group I'm in on Facebook where one guy, I mean, he is so infatuated with Becky. He always refers to her as his wife. And no, this is not Seth Rollins saying this, but the guy, I mean, he's just a huge Becky Lynch fan, and I get it. You know, she's good. She's very good. Becky eliminated Liv Morgan, kind of coincidentally enough, at the end. Obviously, it's planned. We know that. Now Rhea has tweeted about them because she referred to Liv as the forever runner up and Becky as the interim champion. So Rhea is essentially saying when she comes back, she is going to be going after the title that she never actually lost. I like it. It's good storytelling. And I really hope they're not fibbing when they say she has a legitimate injury. It's a publicly traded company. And so I thought they've gotten away from things like that. There's some things that you can't lie about anymore. And that's one of them. You can't strip the title because of an injury, have her shown up in a sling, have her going, um, but then again, maybe they cleared it. Who knows? But you got to take a drink. Once again, my sparkling ice black raspberry. Yeah. So Rhea did say something that I do agree with. She referred to Becky as the interim champion. Like I said, though, I mean, she's over. Fans love her. She doesn't need the title, though, since she said it multiple times. And I think part of the reason why they put the title on Becky, one, this is actually pointed out on another show. I believe it's actually finished her wrestling. They point out she just released a book. It gives more publicity with the book. It kind of helps promote their sales. So that's one reason. Also, this is a way for the next champion, whoever wins, if they beat her one-on-one, it looks more legit as a champion instead of just, well, you were in a battle royal. Okay, battle royal, yeah, I mean you're tossing people out, whatever, blah blah blah. But it's not like you tossed the other, what was it, 20 of them? It's not like you tossed everybody out yourself. And beating Becky does add actually even more weight if somebody beats her to win the championship. We know that's a big deal because even Becky, not as a champion, you beat her, you beat somebody. And now we got to wonder, well, who is the next champion? And I don't know how long Becky's going to hold it. It may be until they have their matches in Paris here pretty soon. You know, I don't even know the dates of that, but that shows you how unfocused, I guess, on wrestling I've been lately, just because of other things in life going on. So I mean, I haven't been able to focus on it as much, but I don't know even the date of the next pay-per-view, PLE, whatever, the next big event that they're actually doing actually it's in France. I say Paris. It's I seriously doubt they're going to try anything in Paris right now because of the Olympics that they're ramping up for. And so was it Lyon, France, I believe is where the next big event's going to be. But she could be losing that at the very next event. My guess, it would be either Liv, they're kind of pushing that already, or Shayna Baszler. I would like to see Shayna Baszler hold the title because Shayna Baszler, I mean, she looks legit. She is legit. She's got that background, that MMA background, which makes her dangerous. I'd like to see her as champion. And I'd like to see her go on a decent run as champion. It doesn't have to be years long, but just give her a decent run because I think she earns it. And that's nothing against Liv holding it, because I think Liv deserves a second chance, because when she held the belt the first time, they did not book her right at all. She was a face. People loved, oh my God, she's won the title. And they made her look so weak in the ring. They made her look like Well, she didn't earn it because Money in the Bank, yeah, you may have won. Yeah, you may have pinned or submitted somebody, but it's Money in the Bank. You probably, and a lot of times, because they have this, and it's the whole point of the Money in the Bank is you cash in while the person's already weakened. And they made Liv look weak when she held the title. Two other picks, maybe Piper Nivens. I could see it. Piper's tough. She's really good. And then Nia Jax, of course. Nia, I also get where people may be kind of wary because Nia is one who has actually hurt people in the past. Case in point, Becky Lynch, because that's where Nia broke Becky's nose, like legitimately in the ring. I mean, you just saw the blood, and so they could put it on Nia Jax, but Nia, I mean, she's legitimately tough as well. And I'd say more to come on that. We'll have to see how it all plays out. By the way, one of the things I am liking about this new era of of WWE, what they're calling the Levesque era, Paul Levesque era. And by the way, I like how they're actually using the name Paul Levesque, sometimes Paul Triple H Levesque, just to kind of remind people his first name is not Triple. His last name is not H. The man's name is Paul Levesque. And he is an executive at WWE. He is a former wrestler. Obviously, he is done within the ring due to health reasons. The doctors have told him he is not to wrestle again. He actually had to have a defibrillator implanted into his heart because the man almost died a couple years ago because of a condition. He will not be getting back in the ring to compete anymore. So he is focusing strictly on his job as the actual main creator. He's either operating officer or whatever they're calling the content officer, but he's the one not necessarily writing the storylines, but he is the one making the decisions on those. He's given, as far as you can tell, as far as I've read, he's given his team more more carte blanche to write their stories without him interfering, because he came from a wrestler's background, so he understands the stuff. And if you notice the production on the shows, there's a lot of things that have also changed, and part of that is because Kevin Dunn is no longer heading the actual, like, the cameras teams and things like that in the background. So you're not going to have the jump shots, you're not going to have some of the zoom ins, and you're not going to have some of the other things that people have been complaining about for years. But Vince McMahon, of course, was not listening to the fans. He was listening to himself. And Kevin Dunn was somebody he was never, ever going to um, get rid of. No matter how much people complained about the job Kevin Dunn did. But speaking of wrestlers earning respect, because I'd say that Paul Levesque is definitely earning respect. And speaking of, and also somebody with the name Paul, not a first name, last name, Logan Paul. Logan Paul right now is the only champion left from the VKM era. When all the lawsuits and everything in VKM, he was finally forced to step away 100% completely from wrestling. There was a list of champions. Logan Paul is the only one who was still holding that title. If you watched WrestleMania, there was a lot of title changes there, a lot of them. And I have to look to see, obviously with the hardcore title or 24/7 title notwithstanding, I mean, I know those happened to, if you pull that out, this past WrestleMania 40, did it have more title changes than any other WrestleMania? I'm going to have to look it up. But Logan Paul is earning more respect all the time. I actually saw a statement from somebody, and it was another wrestler, and for the life of me, I cannot remember who it was because I was actually trying to find this earlier. Unfortunately, when I looked on Twitter, X, whatever, when I looked on there, I couldn't find it because, I mean, I have so many people that I follow, and so many accounts that I follow, and so many accounts that follow me, and it was, I couldn't find it, but it was a fellow wrestler who actually said they were giving a lot of props to Logan Paul because they said a lot of celebrities come in and they kind of crap all over the business and they treat it like, well, I'm here to help you, not the other way around. And, I'm doing more for you than what you're doing for me. And so I'm going to do what I want. And Logan Paul's not treating it like that. Okay. Logan Paul has taken his role very, very seriously. You could tell that from the very first match he was in, because as soon as he got, of course, tagged in because he was tagging with The Miz, got tagged in, people were like, oh my God, what we're going to see here. And then he started wrestling and the man looked good. He had been training. He had actually been studying. He had been wanting to get the moves down. He had been working with people. He did not look necessarily like someone who was just stepping in the ring for the first time. The only other person I've seen do it like that is Bad Bunny. And even Bad Bunny, who impressed everybody, Bad Bunny has not been anywhere near the level of Logan Paul. Plus, he is a natural heel. You look at him, he's cocky. Like, he's really a cocky person. And he's tall, he is athletic. You can tell that. I mean, he takes care of himself. And of course, the association with his brother, Jake Paul, people like to hate them. And some of it, I mean, I will say, especially Jake Paul, it's definitely earned. But they kind of relish in it. But I guarantee you, Logan Paul, if you were to actually have like a interaction with him, like away from like the spotlight, he would actually be polite to you. He would not treat you like he's looking down on you, because he takes it very seriously. He acts like a champion. When he's got that belt, he's like, look, and he's defending it, and he's doing well at defending it. And, and I actually like seeing him in the ring now. And he's proven that, because when he had the match against Roman Reigns over in Saudi Arabia, everybody's like, why does he have this match already? This is going to be his third match and only his second singles match. And oh my God, did he impress everybody? Especially since he actually legitimately got hurt in that match. And he kept going. Nobody even knew he was hurt. And so he's gotten people's respect. Now, I don't know if the business aspect of it, because he must be a sharp businessman, because they have that deal going with Prime. They're sponsors of WWE. You see the Prime logo right there in the center of the ring. Also, something else of a new era. Now, this I don't think is necessarily Paul Levesque. I think this might be the UFC side of it, the Endeavor. This may be their side of it, because they're used to, okay, UFC, we have sponsors. It's another way of bringing in revenue. And, but Logan Paul's actually, part owner of that company. Well, they're actually right now, unfortunately, bad news. They're being sued for supposed chemicals. I saw this story right before I started recording. Because I'm on a little bit of a tight schedule today, and I wanted to make sure I got this recording in today, because I've been not putting it off, but there's reasons why I haven't been recording, and I want to make sure I get this in. So I will have to look at the details later. I'm still gathering for the details, but they're sued something about chemicals that are in the Prime drink. And I did see a statement. He said there's no chemicals. I don't know what they're talking about, but more to come. Also, and some people may call this bad news. Some may say, hey, it's good news, depending on your opinions of the people. Some it's news, regardless. The WWE has released some people. They've released 6 names, and I'm not going to run off all 6 right now, but I will talk about a handful of them, because even under Paul Levesque, this is still a business, and people need to stop freaking out every time people start getting released. This is not like the mass releases that have been happening in the past few years, where they're saying, well, due to budget cuts, and then you find out because they were freeing up money because of all these non-disclosure agreements and all the hush money and their payoffs and other things that they were doing. And of course, they were freeing up money. Let's bring in Brock Lesnar for his three annual matches, and you know, this is a case. There was no details as to why these particular wrestlers have left. They could have been several. They may have requested their releases, but the three that really stood out in my mind, the three I'm the most familiar with, and I know there's other three, and it's not a knock on them, but Jinder Mahal being one of them. Jinder Mahal, former world champion Jinder Mahal. Uh, Jinder Mahal, who I actually like Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal, he's got a good look, he's got a good gimmick, and got a good move set. For some reason, it's not resonating with fans necessarily, but I like Jinder Mahal because I think he brings some legitimacy to the matches. Another one, Xia Li. I think she might be the first Chinese wrestler, maybe, definitely probably the first Chinese female wrestler that to come stateside. A little surprised to see her go because I know they've been giving her a little bit of a push at one point. But Jinder Mahal, he's one that is a surprise. I think he might have requested because he actually put out a tweet, Maharaja out. But seems like there's no animosity between him and the company. Xia Li, same thing. Don't know if there's any animosity. And then I just saw Cameron Grimes was released yesterday. Had to look at my watch to see the date. Yeah, Cameron Grimes was actually released yesterday. Cameron Grimes was starting to get a push, and all of a sudden, shoop, gone. And so that one, there's even less details about him than what there are the rest of them because his is the most recent. Now, I don't think it's going to be a case of like the mass layoffs that we saw previously, like I said, but you're still going to have churn, CHURN, churn. Anytime you're dealing with the business, you're going to have turnover. People leave, new people come in. Sometimes you got to cut slots. It happens. It's not the most fun job in the world when you have to be the person to decide who has to go. Because even in the civilian world outside of the entertainment industry, I saw a guy who he had just bought a house, wife was pregnant, and then they came up to him on a Friday and said, "Hey, dude, your job just got made redundant. Sorry." Now, fortunately for him, he was able to get a new job within the company right away. And for those 2 weeks in between his last day and then his first day in the new position, because I actually helped get him the new position because they actually asked me about him. They said, "Oh, he's been let go because the position's been very redundant." And they asked me about him because he applied for a different position. Hey, what do you think about him? Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. So I like to think I actually helped, at least give him a good um, positive review, I guess, positive reference. So he's able to get a new job. So he had a 2 week vacation, paid vacation, but it was probably the most stressful 2 week paid vacation in his life. But we don't know. It is a business, and you look at the roster of people. And by the way, I did roster stuff every single week when I was at my old job. That was part of my thing. Every Friday, I did this great big honking report all about the head count in our region for operations. And I found out later on, as a year or two before I actually left the job, it was actually being referred to as the Barber Report. Kind of cool. I guess my report actually had my name attached to it. But one of the things about when all the people are leaving, previous to yesterday, and of course, this may not be a coincidence that Cameron Grimes left when he did. I doubt it. I'm just speculating. It's probably just a coincidence. Dwaylen sent me a text, and it was a link to a news story. And that's what he and I do, fairly often. We see a news story, and if the other one hasn't mentioned it, we send it to him. Hey, check this out. Well, this one, it was on a wrestling site, but as I got to reading the story, I realized it was not a quote unquote wrestling story. This was like a lot bigger than just wrestling, but the wrestling industry is being affected by it as well. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has ruled non-compete clauses are illegal. And that means that these wrestlers can leave. They can leave WWE, or they can leave AEW, or they can leave TNA, or they can leave All Japan, New Japan. It doesn't matter. They can leave a company one day, and then they can immediately start with a different company the next day. Prior to this, it was always talked about whenever you saw it more when they were leaving WWE, because it was made very publicly that person, they have a 90-day non-compete clause. And I'm also thinking, are you paying them for those 90 days? They gave their notice, but you're telling them they can't work, not in this industry, an industry that they're very familiar with. You're telling them they can't do it for the next 90 days. How messed up is that? Well, the FTC has ruled that it is illegal. And they said not only is it illegal it's illegal, period, for any company, any industry. And since I've been applying for a lot of jobs, yes, I'm still looking for jobs. I've told my wife not so long ago I applied for at least 120 jobs. That is no lie. That is not an exaggeration. Right now, and actually, since I've done that, it's probably about 130 now. I have gotten some replies back to my applications. Unfortunately, most of them said, "Oh, man, your resume looks good." Sorry, but right now, I know my resume has actually moved up to the next level. So keeping the fingers crossed, keeping the prayers going. And some of these jobs have actually asked, in fact, the one that I'm talking about right now, that I've actually moved to kind of to the next level of the review, it actually asked, or did you have to sign a non-disclosure, or are you under a no-compete clause right now? Or did you have to do a no-compete? And I could honestly say no, because fortunately my company did not do things like that. And because they're even saying, like, at executive levels, they're not going to do it. It's illegal there too. Because seriously, how can you justify stopping somebody from earning an income? I mean, that to me just makes no sense. They're like, well, you're not going to be here, so for the next 3 months, you're not going to be anywhere. And like, my question is, well, are you going to pay them because you're the one keeping them from working? Are you going to help them pay their bills? Because, I mean, there's a release and you're saying, well, because obviously if they were terminated for cause, it's going to be a non-factor. But if somebody, you negotiated this, maybe somebody put in a notice. Maybe the person was tired of working 70 plus hours a week and only getting paid for 40. And the person, they had to leave for their own, or maybe other personal reasons. Because, by the way, I had a lot of reasons which added up to why I finally had to leave. But at no point did my director actually say, by the way, you cannot go work in this industry. Not only that, but up until 2 days prior to me leaving, I had a job lined up with another company, another competing company that came up after I put in my notice. So it wasn't like I was negotiating this new job, then got it and put in my notice. No, this actually came up after I put in my notice, and I gave a 6-week notice. So I was able to, and that actually says, when I left, there was no animosity between myself or anybody whom I worked with. I mean, it was just, there was a lot of personal reasons why I had to leave. So, so I did that, and I got contacted by this other company because they had actually saw my resume on LinkedIn, or they saw my profile on LinkedIn, and they contacted me. And I had not even said I was looking for a job yet. So, but I had it lined up. They said, yeah, the job's yours. And then boom, guess what? Budget cuts is, what happened with them. And so 2 days prior to me leaving the company, the job I had lined up fell through. But there was no non-compete clause with the company. That's why I was able to get that particular job to begin with, even though it did not work out, obviously. So there's no more waiting to start new contracts. You leave the company, you can go work with the next company the very next day. And oddly enough, I think CM Punk when that whole brouhaha happened with AEW back in the summertime last year. I think he was actually cleared if he wanted to work with WWE pretty soon afterwards. I don't think there even was a non-compete clause. But in local news, it is that time of year for the Northern Wrestling Federation. For those of you on YouTube, you see the shirt. Like I said, I just bought this shirt this past Saturday. It is a triple X, and it's hard for me to find shirts sometimes because not everybody is as fat as I am, where I need a triple X shirt. They had one there, and I was like, yes, because I was wanting a triple X, 3X Northern Wrestling Federation t-shirt. And now I have it. But I can see that it is that time of year for Revolution Rising, which is the NWF. This is the third year in a row they're putting this on. This is an all-women event, and it is actually put on by Big Mama. She's been on the show before, and I'm hoping we're trying to schedule some other female wrestlers to come on the show next week to help promote the show, because the show is actually happening next Saturday, May the 4th. The name of the show is actually Revolution Rising Rebellious Journey. And I kept seeing the graphics. I'm like, that's familiar. Then it occurred to me it's May 4th. It's Star Wars Day. You look at the graphics on all the promotional posters, they look like Star Wars. I'm like, well, that's cool. May 4th in Covington. And a lot of the matches, in fact, I want to say most of the matches, if not all, maybe, are already set. In fact, let me pull up some of those, and I will actually tell you about some of the matches, because I am looking forward to this. NWF Women's Champion Nikki Victory is going to be going against Lainey Luck. I'm not familiar with Lainey Luck, but if she is going to be going after the NWF Women's title, I imagine she has earned her way there. Big Mama, our friend, against Mercedes Martinez. I believe I've seen Mercedes Martinez in the past, but I want to say she's good. There's two, TT versus Jessie Bell. Now, these are women of wrestling. They're another organization that's working hand in hand with the Northern Wrestling Federation, but I know Big Mama's not going to bring any slouches in. Next one is Riley Matthews versus Mika. I just spoke to Riley this past Saturday about this match, and I was like, Mika. And then I was like, man, I know I've seen her. And then Riley pointed out, she said, you've already seen us wrestle. I'm like, I have? She's like, yeah, for another show, another company, actually, because Riley actually, she's branching out. I mean, yeah, she is definitely a Northern Wrestling Federation product. She's good. She is very, very good. And that's why she's doing shows for OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, down in Louisville every week. You get on the Fight TV app, you can actually see the OVW shows. Riley Matthews has been on there. So Riley's star is definitely on the rise. But she pointed out it was a show in Georgetown, Ohio, just a few months ago. She's like, don't you remember you watched us wrestle at that one show for Spot Monkey Productions? I'm like, you're right. That's right, because Mika, I remember talking with her about having her possibly come on the podcast. That was when some stuff was going on. It kind of put the podcast, the podcast was never in limbo, but it kind of slowed some things down. We had to do a lot of changes. But so Riley Matthews and Mika, I know how good that match was the first time I watched it when it was for Spot Monkey. And I know it's going to be a good one here as well. And Ella, the return of Ella versus Alice Crowley. Love that name. Wow. Alice Crowley. I'm not familiar with Alice Crowley, but man, I like the name. It's kind of like Aleister Crowley. So it's got a kind of an evil, kind of mean touch to it. And Savannah Sweet versus Jada Stone. I believe I've seen Jada before. This is part of the PGWA, the Professional Girls Wrestling Association. Savannah Sweet was our Rookie of the Year last year. The year before that, Riley Matthews was the Rookie of the Year. But if it says anything, Savannah Sweet is also really, really good. She actually came on the show last year to help push the Revolution Rising card that they put on last year. And she at least was the PGWA Women's Champion. I don't know, or the PGWA Champion. It is a professional women's wrestling organization. And I just know Savannah is really, really good. But Jada Stone, I mean, I recognize the name, recognize the face. I'm pretty sure I've seen her, but I maybe only seen her once. And a couple more wrestlers. who are making appearances. They don't have matches lined up, but they are making appearances. Are Anika, Big Boss, Anika, Breezy, who's been on the show before, Small and Mean, Selena Dean. It actually has her down as a special guest referee. It does not say the match though, not that I'm seeing. I'll have to actually ask somebody about that. Another special guest referee, Becky Pence. Not familiar with her, but like I said, I know Big Mama's not gonna. She's not gonna be bringing any slouches. I know that. She makes sure she has a good quality product, and I would actually recommend that if you get a chance to go watch, uh, well, watching the NWF in general is always good. Roger Ruffin, the head of the NWF, I think Wildcat Chris Harris is the top trainer. They put on quality shows. They really do. And I've always enjoyed going to their events because of money issues on my end. I can't go to as many as what I would like to. Unfortunately, the ones in Mount Orb, I think I've missed one Mount Orb show the entire time they've been running there, and that's because I was in Florida. And so I know they put on great stuff. You ever get a chance to watch their shows, go to it. And then especially if you get a chance to watch one of their special shows. And this is definitely one of the highlights of the year. This is Revolution Rising. It was such a big thing. They first put it on 2 years ago. It was actually at a VFW hall in downtown Cincinnati. And it outgrew that building like that day. And that place was packed. Next year, they moved it to Covington, to the Hits baseball complex in Covington, because you needed something a lot bigger than just the VFW hall, because they didn't know how many people they were going to have. And so that's what they had in the VFW. It outgrew that quickly. So now they're going to be at Hits in Covington. This will be the second year in a row. And I've actually talked to Big Mama, and she's trying to grow it even bigger and bigger. And, so definitely looking forward to that. And one more thing I need to address, and this is actually part of the reason why I've been kind of holding off actually doing shows, because it's something I need to address, but I don't want to mention any names, and I don't want to cause any animosity, but I still feel I need to address something. In response to the last podcast I received a message. Somebody who is not friends of mine, they still messaged me privately. They did not like what was being said on the podcast. They made some cracks at me. They made some cracks at Duke. They just laid into us, called us liars, and made some personal attacks on me. Okay, not going to say any names. And I can usually brush off some things. Don't ever come at me and call me a liar. That is one thing I am not. You ask anybody who is friends of mine, you ask anybody who's family member, anybody I deal with or have dealt with on a daily basis, they'll tell you real quick, not only am I not a liar, I am usually pretty blunt with the truth, because people always know they can get an honest answer out of me, whether it's the most popular answer or not. They always know they can get the honest truth. The way I see honesty, the truth as I know it will always come out of my mouth. And don't ever accuse me of lying, and especially don't lie about me. Don't falsely accuse me of things, because that's actually one thing that even when I was in the military, I had to fight off, certain people who made false accusations about me. And I absolutely will fight. I will not stand and just take it. If I got in trouble for something, if I did something wrong, I owned it. Period. And when somebody falsely accuses me of something, especially when you lie and then you accuse me of lying, that kind of makes you a hypocrite, first of all. And they're both false accusations, but then the crack about me having a pathetic life. This is how sad things can get. Okay. My pathetic, they said, enjoy your pathetic life. And that, to me, is a very laughable statement. Now, I don't walk around bragging. I don't have an ego. I know my accomplishments. I don't have an I love me walk. I just don't. Because I'm like, well, I'm not done. Yes, I have won awards. Yes, I mean, I've done a lot. I mean, I could even, I will. I'm going to tell you about some of the things that I'm like, you don't know anything about me. You know, sweet Fanny Adams about me, trying to keep this as about as family friendly as what I can. But I'm a retired Air Force Master Sergeant. I did 20 years in the Air Force. I have a chest full of medals. I have a ribbon rack that is so big. I actually had an airman tell me one time that, man, you're wearing a clipboard on your chest. And every single one of those I earned, all of them. Okay. I'm an Afghanistan veteran. All right. I led a team of 70 airmen. I led the team, 70 airmen who worked for me. Okay. I took care of them. Okay. I still keep in touch with quite a few of them. And I was their mentor. I was their leader. I was their everything, but I made sure that I took care of them. Okay. I have also deployed to Kuwait. In fact, I deployed to Kuwait not even 2 months after my daughter was born. All right. A couple years after that, I did an overseas tour in Korea, in South Korea, by myself, unaccompanied, 1 year by myself. While I was there, I actually worked on my bachelor's degree. Okay. I wasn't out partying. I mean, I still socialized, but I wasn't out wasting my time with that. Okay. I mean, and I'm still friends with people who I was stationed with over there. I mean, I do not mistreat people. I've lived in 3 different countries other than the United States. Okay. I've traveled to or through 18 different countries, 3 different continents. I've drank wine in Paris. I've had beer in Germany. I've had sake in Japan. Not to mention, I've had a cappuccino sitting in Italy, Venice to be exact, where I also had a nice little gondola ride in Venice. Cost me €100, but I actually had a nice little gondola ride. I've actually done things like that. When I was in the military, I had a top secret clearance. That is no joke because I worked intel. I was in signals intelligence. At one point, I was stationed at the National Security Agency. Okay. You know, stop me if any of this sounds, pathetic. But I've earned an associate's degree in communications. I also got a bachelor's degree in information technology. I finished summa cum laude with highest honors. That's what it means. Okay. Since I retired out of the military, I used my GI Bill and I finished a master's of business administration, better known as just an MBA. Some people don't even know what MBA stands for. That's what it is, a master's degree in business administration. By the way, my GPA there was a 3.95. When you hit a master's degree level, you're expected to maintain that high of an average. You're expected to maintain at least a B average. A 3.95 is a high A average. Okay. And on top of that, I also have a Class A CDL. The big trucks? I can legally drive one of those. I had to earn that. I had to go to school through that, paid for by the Air Force, but I still had to do the work for it. And outside of all that, I'm on the praise team for my church, also known as the church band. I can play multiple musical instruments. I've been the team leader in the past. And by the way, some of the other awards, when I left being one of the team leaders in the past, I was actually given awards for that. When I say about the Love Me Wall, I actually have one award that's sitting out, and it is not for, the award is sitting out not because I want to brag on it, just because the award itself is a bell I got when I was in Korea. It is just a cool looking bell. It's very nice and decorative. It was when I earned Technician of the Year when I was in Korea. Okay. I've also earned quarterly awards. I was senior NCO of the quarter at my last base. At one of the quarters I was there. All right. And, as far as like being the team leader, when I say I was on like the praise team, I've also written songs. I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I've actually written songs, one of which has actually been performed in public at my church because I was there. I was the one, in fact, I wrote, it was actually technically 2 different songs that I wrote and I combined them into one. And I'm in the process of getting those songs copyrighted right now. I've also been the former president of one of the organizations at our local school. Okay. I was elected unanimously by my peers. It was actually the Choral Booster Club. Never would have thought that growing up, but they wanted me to be part of it and they wanted me to be president. That was there. I didn't actually say, hey, I want to be president. They said, no, we're nominating you and we're all voting for you because we think you'll do a good job. As far as I know, I did do a good job. On top of all that, what time I have, I run two separate podcasts. Obviously, this one and my other one, the Cubicle Chat. Okay. And I've also been married to 25 years to my beautiful wife, and I have two absolutely amazing kids. Like I said, stop me when you find something in there that sounds pathetic. Okay. Doesn't sound like any of that. None of that sounds like it's pathetic to me. And this is going to be the last thing I have to say about this. I don't have to lie or embellish anything about a damn thing that I have done. And I'm not finished writing my own story. Remember that before you run your mouth about somebody you know absolutely nothing about. And on that note, for everybody else out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And tell your friends to also subscribe and hit me up. If you got any topic ideas, hit me up. If you have any feedback, warning, if you give me a message like this, I will block you with a quickness, because I'm about to go block this person now. I just want to make sure that in case they're listening or watching, they actually see the response. I'm not saying any names. You know who you are. Thank you. God bless.